Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. As every Tuesday, since this show comes out on Tuesday, we record on Mondays. It is me, Ethan. It is your boy on the other side, Mr. Brice Lewis.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm a little tired, but going through the grind, but we're making it out here.
I don't know if our listeners live on the southeastern side of the United States, but us Atlanta boys, we've been going through the rain like we live in Seattle. It has been raining nonstop for a couple weeks, and it's been miserable.
That ain't the truth.
But we continue on and move forward with our lives as if it was sunny. At least we try to.
Yeah, we definitely try to, man. You just gotta get through it, man.
Maybe Trae Young should stop raining down threes. Maybe it'll dry up soon.
Ice Trae. Listen, you better go ahead and brought snow here yet.
Listen.
Okay. So
the Rain Man left the Braves. He's no longer on the team. He signed somewhere else. The bringer of rain is gone. Why are we still dealing with this?
Hey, man, you can't help it. Somebody that wet from the 3-point line.
Alrighty. Josh Donaldson is no longer here. It hurts me as a Braves fan. It's okay. I'll get over it. Regardless, what we can't get over is what we have to talk about today, which is some XFL, some NFL, CBA, potential lockout stuff. Vontaze Burfict is back. And he was back a lot sooner than we assumed he would be back. The Combine is coming up this week. And, of course, our new topic of every week is division breakdowns and division discussions. So, to start us off, Brice, the XFL for the Extreme Football League, I think that's what it's called. Extreme?
Listen,
exciting?
You could.
Intense?
It could mean all of that. It really just depends on whatever you prefer to say. But yeah, we obviously had our third week of the XFL season this past week, and I feel like this was another successful week in the XFL. So we're going to start with the Saturday games here, and we're going to talk to you about the Sunday games next. And we're going to start with the Saturday games with the first game on Saturday on ESPN/ABC. The Houston Roughnecks took on the Tampa Bay Vipers and won 34-27. Obviously, this is another big game for P.J. Walker. 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards, no picks. The Vipers actually played probably one of the best games they played all year. After the first 2 weeks, they were looked at as maybe the worst team in the XFL. No. Even though they lost again, this is probably one of the most competitive games because one of the biggest issues is their quarterback position.
For sure. And
they've really used the quarterback rotation in this game with Eric Flowers and Taylor Cornelius. So, and it kind of worked. They got some success. They were able to move the ball. They feel like that they've moved the ball, and they've been able to move the ball. It's just when they get into the red zone, they haven't been able to score. But when it came down to the end of the game, those same woos have came back to haunt them as they had 2 chances late in the game to be able to tie it up, and they just weren't able to get it done. Houston was able to hang on. I've noticed that all of the Houston Roughnecks games have been the most entertaining ones, just because they're always sometimes the most closest ones. Except the first game when they blew out the Wildcats of Los Angeles. But, obviously this is just another game that, shows the dominance of the Houston Roughnecks that are now officially the only undefeated team left in the XFL. So, obviously that's great for them. Obviously they have some talent. Obviously P.J. Walker is getting a lot of hype. If XFL has an MVP, he's definitely in discussion. Cam Phillips is one of the best wide receivers in the XFL. He has dominated receivers. He's dominated corners all 3 weeks, scoring multiple touchdowns in all 3 games so far. And that's not even, remember, he wasn't even supposed to be the main guy. It was supposed to be Sammy Coates, former 3rd-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, obviously, that's a great accomplishment for Cam and those boys. Obviously, like I said, Tampa Bay drops to 0-3 on the season. And, they find a success. Since there's only 4 teams that can make the playoffs, I don't want to make any rash predictions, but we maybe can make that assumption that, okay, their season, since there's only, I believe there's only 5 regular season games left. I believe.
It's only been... No, I think there's...
Well, because
it's a 10-game season, is it not?
I was thinking that was including the playoffs. Because they only have 2 games to play. Because, think about it. It ends in April, right before the draft.
Oh, true.
So, I would feel like they only have, 5 left. So, in terms of regular season games. So, that pretty much you would think maybe rules them out, pretty much. Unless the other teams all lose 3+ games. And then
what we saw on Sunday may may actually, it might be more wide open than we assume.
Yeah, obviously this is by conferences. They have the East and the West. So, and Tampa's in the East since they're down south. But and obviously that's a big deal. But yeah, it was a great game. Probably one of the more competitive games. It was the first game that Tampa Bay has had as a home game all year. Obviously, when you talk about these XFL games, these home games aren't anything. You can still have a good atmosphere at these games. You still get maybe 20,000, 17,000 people coming, which is a good attendance. This isn't bad attendance by any stretch of the imagination. We're just spoiled by, usually NFL games getting 50, 60, 70, depending on how big it is, 80,000 fans. And obviously, college football getting over 100,000 fans a lot of these games. So, obviously that was, like I said, that's a good one for the Houston Roughnecks that remain undefeated. And I'm sure they're going to be looking into next week and still trying to compete at a high level and to go 4-0 in their next matchup. The other matchup on Saturday, the Dallas Renegades took on the Seattle Dragons in Seattle, and Dallas was able to pull out the victory 24-12. Seattle was able to get 3 turnovers in this game, but their offense really struggled, and Dallas just made too many big plays, and it was just one of those types of games where Seattle's defense has been one of their best units all year, but at the end of the day, sometimes the offense has not executed at a high level, which has contributed to them not being able to put up enough points. And obviously Dallas has really started to capture a trend ever since Landry Jones returned as the starting quarterback, and they have been one of the better offensive teams in the XFL since his return. Obviously they have weapons like Cameron Artis-Payne. He's been one of the better running backs in the XFL this year. And like I said, Landry, he you can tell, you can see the arm talent, you can see why back in the day when he was entering the NFL draft, he was very highly touted. Obviously, and I think he was another mid-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it just never worked out. If you ask a lot of Pittsburgh fans, they don't like him, but he's back with his former coach Bob Stoops with the Dallas Renegades, and they're playing well, and they have now a chance, since they're now 2-1 now, can go to 3-1 next week, as obviously the Seattle Dragons are now 1-2 on the season. They've been competitive in all their games though. So, it's one of those things where Seattle's one of those teams that you maybe look at and think, okay, you're going to definitely be grinding, and you're definitely going to be competing against them on a week-to-week basis. It's never going to be an easy game. You just got to make more plays, and hopefully your defense gets some stops and some turnovers, and you should be successful at the end of the day in terms of picking up a victory. Obviously, the atmosphere in Seattle was also great, like always. Seattle is a great football town, great football city. Probably one of the more underrated ones. You would think that's not true just because, the 12th man and just the place, the home field advantage that Seattle Seahawks get. But sometimes, if you don't really appreciate, the type of fans they have up there. Remember, it rains a lot up there, and they come out to these games and they sell out. So, that should tell you a lot about their fan base.
Yeah, they definitely they come out and they try their best to support the sports teams there in that area. Mm-hmm. It makes you wonder why they don't have another major sporting event there that rhymes with basketball. But
hey, if they do decide to eventually expand back out into that, I'm sure they'll be.
Don't they have the Drew League there as well?
I think so, but obviously it's the Drew League.
Yeah.
So, and I think obviously baseball. When is their baseball team irrelevant? It's been a while.
The Mariners have been good sometimes. They have.
It's been a while.
They have a good player there. Somebody's good up there.
It's like, yeah, they have a good player, guys. So that's pretty much the Saturday games. Obviously, coming out of these games, one thing we always have to remind you guys of is that during this season, the XFL can block any NFL signings. So if any player that you're worried about leaving because like, oh, they're balling out, the NFL might sign them, don't worry, XFL's probably going to block it during the season. Now, after the season, though, they'll probably let them walk because, obviously it would be kind of crucial in the middle of the season if your best player was picked up. And then it's just like you got to make a replacement on the fly. So That's why, obviously, for the competitiveness of the game, I think it's nothing's going to happen to your favorite player if you maybe developed a new fan of a certain player on any of these teams. That's one thing about this XFL that I like. It's just the fact that it gives people the ability to be exposed to a new group of players, kind of have some guys that you're rooting for, because it's almost like a journey. Like, oh, you're in the XFL, and I'm rooting for you to make it in the NFL, kind of. So they have more like, backing.
Right.
Than just like a normal player who's just like, yeah, he's coming out of college. He's already highly wanted, first overall draft pick, because it's just like, well, yeah, I mean, he was dominant. But when you have a player that you maybe seen enter a league like the XFL to get back to where they want to be, it's a very impressive thing. It's a very impressive thing.
All right. So we're going to take a break here, and then coming back, we're going to talk about the Sunday games.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, so XFL Sunday, week 3. It was almost a polar opposite of the, I guess, yesterday's games, or as in Saturday's games. And it was not pretty. The two losing teams scored a combined 18 points, and they were both evenly split 9-9. We saw probably the most shocking game coming at the 6 o'clock hour. The DC Defenders played at LA against the Wildcats and got dismantled by 30 plus points, and it was not fun for them. This was the worst showing that Cardell Jones has had all season long, 3 short seasons, as Brice chuckles a bit, as I've been alluding to this for quite some time. And by quite some time, I mean 2 weeks. The XFL's only been happening for 2 weeks. But Cardell Jones has had the same problems that he had at Ohio State, same problems that he had on practice squads in the NFL, and now it's showing its head on national television where people get to watch him even more and probably analyze him a little bit harsher than he should be. But this is the reality of what the XFL is. We think that we're super experts on football, and we don't feel like this is the highest level it could possibly be. So then we feel like our judgments are even more precise. In reality, you don't know. But what we do know is he threw 4 interceptions, and the team had 5 turnovers in general last week, and it was not pretty. They went 2 for 13 on third down. Their offense was abysmal, and you can see that reflecting on the scoreboard. And to be honest, if you go 2 for 13 on third downs, your defense is going to be out there way too much, and at the end of the day, it's going to be tough. So, really, the LA Wildcats just kind of ran amok all across the board. Josh Johnson went 18 for 25, 278, 3 touchdowns, and had a 148 passer rating, which, at the end of the day, passer rating is kind of a stat that you look at on the after, I guess the afterthought, because it can kind of be misleading, because we all know how Kirk Cousins gets his passer ratings, and, a lot of people don't see Kirk Cousins as somebody who's a all perennial quarterback and more of a glorified game manager. Regardless, here we are. He had a really good game. We saw people front flipping in the end zone. Mr. Excitement Carter. We saw Trey McBride going in, getting it done from his previous team, who was traded in preseason, caught 5 passes for 109 yards, scored 2 touchdowns, and it looks like the Wildcats found their groove as they got their first win of the season, and they're basically going to try and get this thing moving towards a new direction. And DC is probably going to have to sit there and figure out what went wrong here. But we've seen signs of this from Cardell, possibly in big games that they won last week, where they were basically defensively dominant. And, Cardell would do things to keep them in the game and keep them on top. But he wasn't really showcasing any flashes of pure, greatness. I said to my friends a few weeks ago that he's kind of like everything that you don't like about Cam Newton in one man that can kind of flash at all times when he plays football. He can be really inaccurate. Sometimes you can't tell if he's going through all his progressions. Sometimes his decision making with the football is very questionable. And that just kind of culminates into this big old thing that has become Cardell Jones in the XFL. It's just that his defense has been really good, and maybe we've just kind of glossed over the fact that he throws a lot of near miss picks a lot that I've seen. So now we see a lot more picks, I guess. So, what do you think, Brice?
I feel like it's one of those things where, it was just shocking to see them get destroyed like this. DC looked like one of the better teams the first 2 weeks of the season, and just coming out there having this stinker of a performance is not a good thing. Obviously, you would think if they're a team that truly is well coached and just very well versed in adversity, they'll bounce back from this, and they'll learn from this experience, and they'll look at the film and they'll improve, because that's what you got to do at this point. Obviously, nobody expect this also because, remember, Los Angeles came to this game 0-2. And, obviously Josh Johnson didn't play the first week. Then he played last week. He had a good game, but they lost. But, obviously, in this game, like I say, he was dropping dimes and just lighting up the DC defenders on defense. And offensively, they just turned the ball over too many times. And if you turn the ball over that many times, it's very, very difficult for you to win a ball game.
Right.
So, but get to the other game that happened on Sunday.
Ooh, this is my team that I follow.
Go
Battlehawks.
The St. Louis Battlehawks had their first home game of the season. So this was the first official football game professionally in St. Louis since the Rams. So obviously this was a big home opener for them. And they played against the New York Guardians and Matt McGloin. Mr. McGloin. I don't like the game plan, and this is terrible. And this game was terrible for the New York Guardians again, because they were beaten 29-9. And honestly, this game just started off just physically getting their will posed by the Battlehawks, as they started off with a just gashing them on the ground. And then after that, then this is what actually was kind of funny. Okay, it's not funny. But basically, Matt McGloin was not able to make it out of the first quarter. He had an injury, so Marquise Williams had to come in with over a minute left in the first quarter. And just, that kind of signaled it from down the hill from there. The Battlehawks just dominated, all through the game. They had the first kickoff of the XFL for a touchdown. So obviously they were doing it through special teams. Obviously they kept running the ball. And just really just keep moving it up and down on the New York Guardians all week. All day long. And it was just very hard for them to do anything, They did. Obviously St. Louis did double passes. They tried different things, and it was successful all day. New York Guardians just have not recovered from last week, and they have not played very good football ever since week 1. And it's just a struggle. And even the Guardians had to make another quarterback change in the middle of the game again, because it's just Marcus Williams wasn't doing anything. And it was actually funny. They actually had a point in the fourth quarter where when they had just scored a touchdown, actually not a touchdown, but what happened was there was a sack on the field. And then one of the players went up to a Girl Scout and got some Girl Scout cookies. So,
you know what kind of Girl Scout cookies were they?
Thin Mints.
The best ones. The best ones for the best team in the league.
He said, here's the football, give me the Thin Mints. Oh, that's a perfect trade. So, obviously they were having fun. Obviously, if your team's having fun like that, you pretty much got the game in hand. And they had the game in hand all day long. And just a great win for the Battlehawks. Obviously, it's going to be a very big matchup in GSMC podcast football history when my Roughnecks go against your Battlehawks. But we'll talk about that when that game comes.
We'll have to hit up the local Longhorns. Battle it out.
Yeah, man. So obviously, again, I've noticed this the last 2 weeks. Last week, the Saturday games were more uncompetitive than the Sunday games. Sunday games were competitive, and then I noticed this week the Sunday games were uncompetitive, but the Saturday games were competitive. I think it happens. Sometimes you can't expect every single game to be competitive, even though you prefer that. But I still feel like after 3 weeks, I feel pretty good about the XFL. How do you feel about it?
I think they're starting to flesh things out, and it's become to the point to where we see what are good offenses and don't have the best offensive game plans, and we see who I don't want to say pretending or anything like that, but we see who has been in games majority of the time. I think those teams that I think DC may have been exposed a little bit on their offensive side of the ball, and their defense may not have been as good as they portrayed to be in the first 2 weeks. But, I mean, that's football. That happens. It happens in the NFL. Sometimes defenses come out super hot the first 2 weeks, and then they cool off. And then sometimes offensives, you see enough game plan, enough film on guys, and you can figure some things out. And I've always felt like St. Louis, they've had a good offense, and sometimes it's just they couldn't put everything together on drives and stuff like that. And same thing with like Seattle. I think Seattle's a pretty decent team. They just sometimes they don't catch all the best luck, and I think it'll be a lot closer when it's all said and done. I think at this point, Houston is far and away probably the best team in the league. And then everything else is kind of a toss-up. I mean, DC is 2-1, but that performance was not a good indicator of where DC is. We don't know what they are. I guess we'll have to see how they bounce back next week. But let's say if DC goes 2-2, then we kind of have to throw all our knowledge of the XFL at this point
I'm sure,
to the side and really reevaluate what these guys are capable of,
I'm sure the Dallas fans are going to come out for the Renegades since they were projected to win the league in the first place.
Right. But let's go ahead and take another break, and then we're going to talk about some NFL CBA.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, so Brice, the CBA, NFL, potential of a lockout. What's going to happen, man? What are we going to do if there's no football?
Right now we're still about a year away from the CBA actually ending. And the league, both from the Players Association and from the owner's perspective, are trying to get a deal done this offseason.
Right.
So then they don't have to worry about that going into our next offseason. And so there has been some improved changes to the new CBA that they've already talked about, that the players have already agreed to also. So that's going to be in the next CBA regardless. It's just they haven't agreed to the overall CBA. And I would love for you to give me your thoughts on some of these things. So one of the first changes they're going to make, or they want to make, is they're going to add a 17th game. So what are your initial thoughts on the 17th game being added?
Well, it's supposed to take away more preseason games, so it'll be, instead of 4 preseason games, it'll be 3, and the 17th game. The problem with it is players would not be compensated. They would be hard capped, or the money made from that extra game would be hard capped to like $250K, which would not quantify enough for how much the top end guys would make on average. So a lot of players who are, who earn that money rightfully are obviously not okay with this. I wouldn't be okay with this. If I had that type of, if like my employer did something to me like this, or gave me a contract that said, I make less than my average on this last day or this last regular season game. So clearly, I don't think the owners have already agreed to this, which is typical, and the players have not. The players union has not. They haven't said anything yet, I don't believe, as far as agreement or disagreement.
Well, the thing about it is like going further into the CBA, they were supposed to vote on the CBA because it was offered to them. So
yeah.
They were supposed to vote on it Friday, but they postponed it. Now they're going to vote on Tuesday. So we will know by Tuesday if we're going to have a new CBA in place or not. But that was obviously one of the changes, adding that 17th game. But another change they made was they're going to add one more playoff spot.
Right.
So now the only people who get a bye week is the number 1 overall seed, but 2 through 7 all have to play.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's going to be interesting, I would think. Adding the extra spot.
We would have 6 total wild card games, I believe, at that point, and
that's about they're probably knowing how they probably would schedule it. Will be one afternoon, evening, night.
Yeah.
So I guess if you love football, I guess that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
No, but at the same time, not too sure how I feel about it.
I think it's because you have those years where one division or one conference has a lot of good teams. Mm-hmm. And I think they want to be able to get all those teams in there. Plus, obviously, for money reasons, because that's an extra game, so it's more money.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, I feel like obviously this has also been initially agreed on by the players because obviously for them, adding a playoff game really doesn't, in terms of getting into this playoffs, I don't see them turning that down. It doesn't really hurt them in any way. It just means, we have one more extra opportunity to make the playoffs now, which obviously if you make the playoffs, you get playoff checks based off whatever is written into your contract. And, that's something that's like obviously a big deal. So, this year basically in the NFC, I think the Rams would have made it into the playoffs if they had the extra spot. And then on the AFC side, I believe, I actually don't even know. I think
maybe
Pittsburgh. It was either Pittsburgh or Oakland because those were
I was going to say either Pittsburgh or Oakland would have made it. And I think it might have been Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I think
Pittsburgh would have made it into the playoffs and they would have been able to play. I think obviously this would be a very interesting, obviously again, decision if like I said, since this is going to be cleared, how it's going to change late game season because now it's just like, even if the last wild card team was like 8-8 in terms of like before with the 6 seeds, now a 7-9 team might potentially get in, and obviously people are worried about that. Oh, do they deserve to be in? But I mean, we've seen it before. Teams have been below 500 and have won a playoff game in the playoffs, so it's not necessarily the end of the world. It just depends on what they do right and what they do wrong. And also, there was also another change where the owners are willing to now give the players an extra 1.5% of revenue. So their revenue will increase in this. So I guess that means maybe bigger deals, potentially more money for the players in that regard. Obviously, since the salary cap is there and everything, and since players are asking for more money nowadays, especially quarterbacks, Because like I said, we're about to start hitting the $40 million range and $200 million overall and just a lot of stuff like that. And so I'm sure this is going to make a lot of players happy, but we don't know what they're going to vote. We don't know. It's not a done deal. Nobody's saying that they're going to definitely take it. They're going to review this and they're going to really think, okay, is this, do we want to bargain for anything else? Is there anything else that we want to try to fight for, or are we satisfied with the CBA? I'm sure more details will come out when it actually gets agreed to, and they'll tell us more details. Like I would expect certain things to change, because obviously I always feel like these CBA agreements, it's like this: you bargain for something, and there's some different things you put in there that you try out, and if it doesn't work out, then the next time you bargain, you just change it to adjust. You know what I'm saying? So,
for sure.
Like, you remember how they reduced practice time and training days? Well, maybe they feel like, okay, this has actually hurt us, so we'll maybe add a couple more back in there. Not obviously to the same extent it used to be, but, just to be more, to just, have that ability to maybe feel like they can improve some of the game itself through, getting more practices in and more time working with the players and et cetera.
Yeah, for sure.
And things like that. So I think that, I think the fact that we're making progress this soon is very important, because last time we had this lasted into the season basically, and we missed, I believe, 2 preseason games, but it lasted pretty deep where even training camp didn't really happen. So obviously you don't want that, because then owners lose money and they don't want to lose money.
Right,
and
of course.
Players don't get paid and they don't have any money. And so it's just like everybody's kind of losing, even though, the owners have other businesses usually, but obviously NFL is like very big, probably a big profit for them, and you don't want to lose.
I would assume
lose
so.
that big profit that you make, because when you're a billionaire or millionaire, you want to get every dime you can get. You don't want to intentionally lose anything. So
I mean, if I were to predict, I feel like they are going to not agree the first time, and then they're going to go into the season without a deal done, and they'll probably get one done by the time next season ends. I highly doubt they'll go into a stoppage.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thinks a stoppage is going to happen, because it's like I said, last CBA agreement, they were very far apart on issues.
Yeah.
This one, it doesn't seem like they're very far apart on stuff. It's just agreeing to just certain conditions, like just, okay, are we okay with making this small change? Like, adding the game, adding the playoffs, but like stuff like that. It's not like before where players were out here fighting for less practice days, and we want more money, and we want this, and we want that, and the owner's like, no, we're not giving you that. Like, that's why it took so long. Yeah. It doesn't seem like there's that type of fighting going on right now between the two. It's more just like a real, like, okay, so how does this sound to you guys? Or is this going to work? And then maybe if they don't, like I said, the players don't agree, they can be like, okay, well, we want this in there, or we want to change that, and then see what the owners say. And just like a little, like, it's a negotiation, like
right. It's a little bit back and forth, some tug of war things.
Yeah, basically.
But, it's going to be real interesting to see when that Patrick Mahomes gets, when his deal comes through, and we'll see how the CBA affects that, because everybody's predicting that he'll get that Steph Curry contract, because he's just been, bar none, the best player in the NFL for the past 2 seasons. He plays in the most sought-after position in sports, and he is at the top of that level of his, of his position. So I would assume that, he's looking for at least, it depends on whatever Dak gets, add like 50 more. I feel like, huh? Or,
yeah.
Because right now, I mean, Dak turned down 30 per year, right? So
yeah, I
don't think
he turned down 33 because he wanted 35.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's getting 40 from this year. I think he might even get maybe 36. You'd think, because if he wanted 35 before, and he turned down all the deals for like 33, then I would assume that he's going to get more than 35, and it might even be backloaded. Like he gets it more on the back end instead of the front end.
I mean, potentially, it really just depends.
Or maybe he'll get it. Yeah, he'll get it up front, and then the back years are just for contract restructures, because that's what they like to do in the league now, is just wait and say, oh, we'll just restructure your deal, or whatever the case may be for players.
Turn your salary into a signing bonus or something.
Yeah, essentially. You know how you can move money.
I don't know how that goes. So, like, if you turn my salary, so does that mean I don't get paid during the season? Like, I just don't get a single check from you guys? Or because they get the game check, which equals their salary, and it's just like, So if you make it a signing bonus, I'm thinking that you're getting that one right there and then. Okay, here's your $26 million. And it's just like, oh, that's it? I guess I don't know. I mean, you're not paying for free, but you kind of just be like, dang. Unless they get like, they have incentives, so that if they do something, they probably get incentives. But.
I don't know. What I do know is, got to go to break. So we're going to go to break, and then we're going to talk about some reinstatement news.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, Brice, hit us with some weekly updated news. I heard that a very, very controversial man has been brought back to us once again. It seems like Cincinnati is always in the headlines these days in the NFL for various different reasons. This one, not so good to some people's eyes. If you're a Pittsburgh fan, you're not going to like this.
Vontaze Burfict has been reinstated by the league quietly. We didn't know he was reinstated. He was reinstated last month, so they basically kept this under wraps.
Bum, bum, bum.
But yeah, so he's gonna try to play in 2020. Obviously, if you know his history, he has always been known as one of the more talented linebackers in the league in Cincinnati and with Oakland. But he just made too many mistakes. Obviously, dirty hits. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you remember the one that people think to Antonio Brown that make people think why Antonio Brown is the way he is today.
Right.
And just a lot of different things. He did it again with the Oakland Raiders this past year, which is why he was suspended for 12 games. Mm-hmm. And just, he like I said, he just that issue with him every time. And so, obviously, we know the talent. He's a little older, though, but we know the talent. We just don't know, can he behave himself? Can he not do anything that's going to raise the ire of fans or the ire of teams? And is any team willing to take a flyer on him? I would think so, but we don't know, because I think he'll definitely be gone from Oakland. So we'll have to see who maybe potentially, if they need a linebacker, maybe bring in Vontaze, see what he can do for you. I'm sure he's missing the game, missing them checks, and missing the game that he says he loves to play. So obviously that's some news for teams, obviously, since we're hitting the draft push right now. Mm-hmm. Where Combine's coming up, and then the next week and then obviously next month's a bunch of teams' pro days and everything like that. And then, if they don't like the linebackers, then maybe you go and take a whiff on Vontaze Burfict, So that's definitely someone that you need to keep an eye on when free agency starts in a few weeks and see if any teams take a chance on him. I don't think he'll be signed right away, but it's just throughout the summer you want to maybe keep up with that and see if potentially if he gets picked up. In other news, Andy Dalton is hidden trade talks recently. People think Cincinnati is trying to trade him to get something back for him instead of cutting him. I don't think they're going to ask for too much. I just think they're just trying to give him the opportunity to maybe, pick his team while also getting something back in return. And there has been a report going around that if Andy Dalton does get traded, that he will definitely go to a team that will probably give him a starting job, I'm assuming. Andy Dalton has been a starting quarterback in this league for years. His best years actually came in his first 5-6 years with the Cincinnati Bengals when they were a top team in the AFC North. And Andy Dalton can play. It's not like he can't. It's just he's not going to get you to the promised land. So, but he's a guy I could see him being a 1-year guy if you drafted someone or you needed someone to be a bridge quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's not like you're going to get a guy who can't play. I think he'll be able to have a good season. The only problem with him is that, obviously people don't know. I mean, Dalton has the ability to put up numbers and to make plays. And if he has a great season, everybody's like, well, you might as well just keep him as the quarterback initially, but you know what Andy Dalton is. So a lot of people think this could be potentially another Ryan Tannehill story of wherever Dalton goes. If he gets a chance that if he plays as well as Tannehill did with Tennessee, that could potentially, help him maybe get another job, keep a job, get more money, things like that.
Well, the thing about quarterbacks are, what guys are capable of. We see when guys have, when people believe in a quarterback, they can kind of do amazing things. We saw it with Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl. We see it with Tannehill going as far in the playoffs as he did. When you have that sort of self-belief and people believe in you and what you can do, no matter the mistakes you make or if you're not the best, quote unquote, you can make some things happen. So confidence is one of the most important things to have at that position. So if somebody is confident in him and if he's confident in himself, you never know how far it can go. But at the same time, he's a Georgia quarterback. So we've seen a lot of those come and go in recent time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it happens. I know this is kind of off topic, but I saw on social media this past weekend they were discussing Mr. Matt Ryan, and somebody said they take Kirk Cousins, hands down. And he said on any given Sunday plus more. I was like, Kirk Cousins.
They would trade Matt Ryan for Kirk Cousins?
No, like he thinks Kirk Cousins is better than Matt Ryan. Like he strictly he firmly believes that.
Oh, so a fool.
I was like, huh? Kirk Cousins.
A fool. That's just is unmistakably a bad take. It's not good.
Listen, I just think some people, like they said, have just hated Matt Ryan since he's been in Atlanta.
Was this an Atlanta fan?
I think so, because it was under Atlanta Falcons thread on Twitter, and I think because it wasn't about. I think it was about some player and how important he is or how good he is to the team. Because they were talking about how Atlanta has a lot of young talent, and and on the Hawks and the Falcons have a lot of big name players.
Yep.
And the Braves have a great farm system and all these young players.
Right.
And that's when that guy came on there talking about, we need to get rid of Ryan. I want Kirk Cousins. And I'm just like, really?
Oof.
I'm just like, huh? I'm like, listen, if you believe Kirk Cousins is better than Matt Ryan, we got to get you checked.
That ain't good, brethren.
We got to get you checked because
it's not.
It has to be just someone who just absolutely despises Matt Ryan. There's absolutely no way.
Kirk Cousins isn't even better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Exactly. Like, at least he got to the Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins hasn't even gotten out of the wild card.
It's just, it's not a good thing.
Well, he just don't do anything, really.
I mean, granted, Kirk Cousins does not have an offensive genius as a head coach to get him to the Super Bowl like Jimmy Garoppolo does.
But he has weapons.
Yes.
And he has an offense. He has
better offensive weapons.
He has 2 number 1 receivers, technically.
Yeah.
And a tight end. And this man still throws for like
Dalvin
120. That's why Stephon Diggs wants to leave, because he's like, we can't do anything. This man is useless.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know if I would, Saints want to get active on that Stephon Diggs stuff.
Well, y'all are looking for another receiver because y'all feel like if y'all get another explosive receiver, y'all be unstoppable.
On offense, for sure. Defensively, I don't like to talk about that end of the field. Makes me sad.
I mean, it's not bad. It's a top 10 defense.
Who that?
Hey, Mardi Gras is happening, so hey,
we have
it's very lit time.
You know what's crazy? We've had one of the better rush defenses in the past 3 years combined. Like, our rush defense is very good. I love Big Sheldon Rankins down there. Davenport's cool, but they both went down.
Don't forget, y'all lost 2 defensive linemen, starting on defensive linemen late in the year last year.
Yeah, we lost Sheldon Rankins and Dalvin Cook. I'm sorry, not Dalvin Cook. We lost 2 Dalvin Cook, but we lost Davenport. So it just hurts to see that, a defense had to go ahead and take take the L like it did, when in reality the defense was the best thing that happened to us in that playoff game. And then offense decided not to show up till the better half of the fourth quarter. And, you know, in realistic times, so did Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But he is Patrick Mahomes, a young spring chicken who was able to get the job done.
Were you happy that Drew Brice decided to come back?
I was satisfied that Drew Brice decided to come back, if only thing to stop people comparing Taysom Hill to the likes of Mr. Lamar Jackson, because it's just not a good take, and he's not Lamar Jackson. It will not be should never be compared to Lamar. Lamar is the starting quarterback in the NFL. Taysom Hill has not shown to be able to do that just yet. So it needs to stop. It had to stop. Thank you, Drew, for making it stop.
He's a restricted free agent, so y'all gonna probably put like a first round tender on him, because I'm sure Sean Payton's like, we can't let this man walk. We need him. He's my quarterback.
Yeah, but honestly, I feel like if somebody wants to take a flyer on Taysom Hill, even though he's kind of feels like the heart and soul of the team, quote unquote, if somebody wants to give up a first round pick for Taysom Hill to be their quarterback, be my guest, because honestly, we can go find somebody who can replace his production in the wide receiver game for sure. He's barely a running back. The only reason why it works so well is because you have to be wary that he can throw the football. Mm-hmm. So,
are you a little worried if Taysom walked that now you are kind of like a little bit screwed at quarterback?
No, as you can see, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the XFL that can sit in the backup position.
y'all, okay, you say that now. And then they go bring a Cardell, you about to be pissed.
We brought Cardell Jones before.
Oh, I mean, listen. Unless y'all jump the wagon and just trade everything you got and try to get a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields.
That would not be the case. That would mean that the season went nowhere and we're done. But let's take a break and then we'll get into the draft.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So, the NFL Draft Combine is coming up, Brice. Who are we looking out for? I know recently, I think I just saw on ESPN either today or yesterday where they measured Joe Burrow's hands, and it comes at a 9-inch, I guess, hand length sort of thing, however they measure hands. And that's the shortest and smallest among quarterbacks in the draft class. Does that mean Joe Burrow is not the best quarterback in the draft, Brice?
I mean,
who knows?
It depends on whatever how deep you take those things. Small hands, he can't be first overall.
Well, I mean, he's the second ranked prospect on draft boards, and he's the first in his position. So the first prospect, of course, is Chase Young, because Chase Young was the basically he was the number 1 draft pick going in, and then it's only changed one spot, really. And that was because Joe Burrow had a magical season.
And Cincinnati's a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. Or do they? Hey, listen. If they take Chase Young, all they're doing is just delaying for another quarterback to take next year.
I'm sure they'll still draft the guy. Probably second round.
For a quarterback, sure.
Jake Fromm.
Maybe. But hey, it wouldn't be like, would you be mad at Cincinnati for saying, okay, let's pump the brakes?
I mean, no, but at the same time, I'm sure everybody would be in an uproar in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it'd be like, what are we doing?
That would not sit well with the fans.
Well, the thing, too, is also, since Zach Taylor's coming in his second year, that it's on a way you're basically saying we're going to have another losing season. And that means he has to hit and quarterback next year or he's fired. And I think that's why it's kind of like, do you really want to take that chance?
What would Marvin Lewis do?
Well, Marvin Lewis, he'd lose this year and next year and still have a job going into that 4th year.
But who would he draft?
I mean,
who would he suggest?
He'll probably take some flyer on somebody and then just like, oh, we'll give him a chance. I mean, remember, Andy Dalton was like a second, third round pick. And I don't know if and everybody was not expecting him to be that great. And then he ended up being actually more than manageable, more than serviceable. So it's not like he's missed on these types of things.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you can get you a franchise quarterback without being a first round quarterback. It's just we assume every quarterback that's not drafted in the first round is a franchise quarterback.
Well, I mean, Dak is now a franchise guy, and he was drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah, Russell was the 3rd round. He's definitely a franchise guy.
Yeah, Russell.
Obviously, we know about the Tom Brady story.
Yeah, of course, we hear it every day.
Every time Tom Brady's on the news, we have to talk about the rise of Tom Brady.
Every time the draft combine is brought up, we get to see that horrible photograph of Tom Brady shirtless.
That boy was not. It's still funny how they say, if you look at him then and now, it's like he's actually improved tremendously. And usually that's weird because usually when you get older, you kind of start to show the olderness. But when he was young, he was like really crusty, and now he's like this. He honestly has like this look of a model, and you're just like, how do you go from that to that? Playing, and then you play football, one of the most physical games in the sport, and you actually look better. Yeah, that TB12. Remember, he eats that avocado ice cream. So
listen, he gets it done. He does it the way he has to.
Would you eat avocado ice cream?
If I can't picture myself eating pistachio ice cream, don't think avocado is going to be the one to cut it for me.
And what would you do if like you had like a turkey and then you cut into it and it was cake?
What's it made out of?
I mean, it's just like it's cake, like vanilla.
Yeah.
Cake.
Oh, so that's it.
Yeah, it's just like presented as like a legitimate turkey.
So it looks like a real turkey,
and
like
you
legit.
Cut into it, and then it's cake.
Oof. Is it like fresh turkey, or is it like
a fresh turkey?
Like you pulled the turkey out after Thanksgiving Day 2?
No,
and
I think it's
like got
turkey.
the gelatinous fat on it and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's fresh turkey. Like, I mean, people can make it look like a real turkey. They can put all this stuff on there and everything.
Well, yeah, of course. I know these cake guys. You know, I mean, I watch Food Network, so I see what goes on.
Would you be mad?
Would I be mad?
Yeah.
Oh, so I was expecting a real turkey and it's a cake?
Like, you know how they say, like, oh, if I eat like a wing and it's cauliflower, I'd be mad.
Oh, so if you try to pull a turkey wing and it's just, I mush it because it's cake, I would be quite surprised. But I would have to applaud the cake artist for making me believe it was, it was turkey. Right. And then I'd probably try it, and then I'll probably be too freaked out because it looks too much like turkey.
That's true. But back to football. So do you think Joe Burrow should consider boycotting Cincinnati because there's some reasons? Cincinnati's not the best franchise. Their owner is their GM and has been like that for years. They have the smallest scouting department in the league. It took them forever to get good facilities for the players because he just does not want to bend to that type of stuff. And basically the perception is they're a horribly ran organization. And that's why they've always kind of been like on the lower end of the football spectrum in terms of organizational structure for a long time. And they're worried that if Joe Burrow goes to that structure with all that dysfunction, that's what's going to ruin his career.
Oof. Well, I don't think boycotting would change the fact that if this guy is so dead strong, as in the owner and GM, what's gonna stop him from drafting Joe Burrow anyway? If you really think about it.
I mean, that's why people say he could pull Eli.
I mean, what? And say he's just not gonna play?
Yeah, you have to trade his rights.
Well,
and I mean, technically, you're wasting if you draft someone and one and he doesn't play, it's kind of like,
I don't know. That's a good look for him, though.
It's a very complex process, clearly, because obviously he's losing money and he's losing the ability to play because he wants to leave, and you don't know how strong the whole Cincinnati is going to be. But at the same time, I'm sure Cincinnati's like, I mean, we want him to play. We want to see if he's our guy. The players are probably, players are going to be very, opinionated, like, oh, he doesn't want to play for us because he's selfish or he thinks we're not going to give him the best chance to succeed. Because you're basically saying you don't believe in the roster.
Well, I mean, maybe he's saying he doesn't believe in the ownership. I mean, it has nothing to do with the players.
I mean, that's why they said if he does it, he shouldn't be the one leading it. If he should like his dad do it or something, so he can take the heat, and then Burrow's just over there just chilling. Yeah,
but it's going to go back to Burrow, regardless of whatever happens there.
Well,
so
I think one of the reasons also is we actually have a recent example of that in Josh Rosen. He went to a dysfunctional situation in Arizona when they were bad, no offensive line. And, obviously he had a very subpar first year. And then he went to Miami his second year, played in 3 games, then got benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then basically through his first 2 years he really hasn't shown that he was worthy of that top 10 pick. But a lot of people could say he was not put in a good situation in Arizona, and he was set up to fail in Miami. And so basically people feel like now his career is pretty much on the downside, going down even further, unless some team's willing to sit up here and give him another chance again to give him a quarterback job. And I think that's what people are worried about, like that going into a position in a team like that could mess him up. Obviously, one of the most famous examples is David Carr, the brother of Derek Carr. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when he was with Houston in their expansion team, and they had no offensive line, and he would get sacked 60 times a season, and that ruined his career because he basically always had anxiety being behind an offensive line, and he was just never able to be what people thought he could have been. So I think people just don't want him going to a situation where it's like, oh, he'll be in a bad situation. That's why they always ask these questions because they're usually, if you're the worst team that season, there's this just sending like, okay, what is he? You could be better and put in a good situation, but it depends on organizational history. It's one thing if it's like a Falcons or Arizona or maybe if one season, maybe Pittsburgh has some terrible season, they were number one because you feel more confident in those organizations. But
there's only been so many. There's only like a few organizations in NFL history that have a history of being good for a very substantial amount of time and good ownership and stuff like that. Like I would think Pittsburgh has a pretty decorated history. Baltimore kind of, they got their first championship in 2001. The Patriots were bad for a very long time before 2000 or 2001. Mm-hmm. I think that between Pittsburgh and I'm forgetting one team in the NFC, I think, that really defined, I guess, football ownership and
Green Bay.
Yeah, Green Bay. The Bears have had good.
You put them Cowboys in there.
I mean, yeah, sure. Cowboys, they'll always try to get you. I don't know if there's any everybody else has kind of been a toss up for ownership for a while. Like Arizona, the Cardinals haven't won. They're farther away from their last championship win or Super Bowl win is closer to I think 1871 than it is to today or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's kind of there's not a lot of good ownership across the board. So at the end of the day, you get drafted where you get drafted to. Granted, they could just do a flip 180 and say, hey, Tua. Hey man, if he doesn't want to play for us, sure. Miami will probably be ecstatic.
Oh yeah,
they'll be like,
"Oh, we get Burrow instead, yes sir."
Yeah, or something like that.
They'll be like, "Oh, now we're going to the chip."
Yeah, but let's take a final break here.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, so to continue the trend of ending off the podcast talking about some division talk for the last final 10 minutes, we are traveling southbound to the AFC South, where we talk about New England and everybody else.
It's actually kind of funny. They call it the AFC South,
yeah.
And none of the teams are located in, except Miami.
Yeah, Miami.
They're the only team located actually in the South.
Yeah, it makes no
Everybody
sense.
else is in that north region, cold, snow, negative degree weather. Miami's always warm. I'm sure AFC, wait, which division we doing?
AFC South.
Oh, wait, this is the AFC East.
I was about to say, how could this be the South?
Dang, I can't, wow, I really messed that up. My bad. Yeah, AFC
It's my
East.
fault too. I went with it. I did not put any mental.
We'll talk about the AFC South next week, though.
I put no mental thought into why that would be
AFC
reasonably
East.
wrong.
But yeah, the AFC East, where every team is in the East, but the Miami Dolphins, they're South.
They're in the Southeast, so they're still East. They're half Easters.
Yeah. But I know teams are like happy when they go to Miami because it's like, we get some warm weather. We can escape from the barren wasteland of snow.
Whatever.
But
Buffalo's not that. They're only cold sometimes, and by sometimes I mean by October.
But yeah, so obviously, New England obviously has been the class of this division for decades, almost 2 decades basically now. They've been the class of this division.
Correct.
There was only 1 year they didn't win the division, which was the year Tom Brady was hurt. And the Jets just happened to have a great year, and the Patriots still finished 11-5 that year too. And basically, both teams, every team in that division, so far, for coming into next season after this past season's review, looks like there's a lot of things trending upward. The Jets obviously finished, I believe, 7-3 down the stretch with Sam Darnold when he came back from his mono. So obviously that might give the Jets a lot of happiness and confidence, knowing that, we played really well when Sam Darnold was here. So if we just get some better weapons around him and we keep our defense up, maybe we can compete. Buffalo made the playoffs last year.
Bills Mafia.
Yes, sir. And obviously they're one of the better defensive teams in the league, having one of the best corners in the league in Tre'Davious White and up-and-coming quarterback in Josh Allen.
Is he up-and-coming? Maybe it's time to come to the light.
I mean, listen,
his accuracy problems are pretty bad.
I mean, he can
decision making.
This is his second year, so he can prove it.
I mean, it is. I hope for the best for them.
I mean, it's funny because you see the arm strength, but if he could just get the accuracy.
Well, yeah, his arm strength.
That's usually the issue with most people, though, with arm strength, though. It's just they have accuracy problems because they're so used to just being able to gun it in there, or they just throw it all over the place.
Yeah, and maybe they can get a wide receiver that's above 5'11". That'd be nice too.
Yeah, I mean they don't. I mean that's one of probably their biggest weakness offensively. They don't have a number one receiver. John Brown is fine, but he's better probably about as your number 2 than your number 1.
Right.
And so if they can probably get a number 1 guy, at least the draft this year is filled with wide receivers.
It sure is.
And maybe they might try to get in the Stephon Diggs trade talks. Maybe they can get a guy in there, and then Josh Allen has him a number 1, and that really could open up their offense because their offense was limited last year. But they were like one of the better defensive teams, so they were always in rugged games, and they just had to make enough plays. And then obviously the Miami Dolphins ending the season, I believe, 5-4, beating New England, which changed the trajectory of the playoffs and could be the reason why Tom Brady is walking away from New England. Obviously, with the talent they had, winning 5 games was very impressive because they literally had no talent except basically some wide receivers. They traded all their good running backs away. They basically cut and traded most of their good players away. And and obviously at the beginning of the season, we thought they were going 0-16 the way they were playing.
Yeah, it looked to be historically bad.
And I think that's why a lot of people are confident because basically it shows that Brian Flores was able to get the most out of his talent and was able to still get them to win games. So
yeah, I mean, they tanked for Tua, and it looked like, oh, maybe they're not going to get Tua. And then we realized, Tua is not going to go number 1, and now they're going to get Tua. So it worked out.
It's a smokescreen, though, that they're not going to get Tua. They're just trying to get people not to trade up for Tua.
They think that people. Oh, are they coming out of Dolphins camp saying they're not going to go for Tua?
There's just like the report the other week. They were saying that they actually like Justin Herbert more because they feel like Tua is not a slam dunk.
Oh Lord!
And so
get out of here.
But that's why they say it could be a smokescreen because sometimes they'll have those reports leak. Like, oh, we don't want this person that y'all have connected us to. We don't think he's that great. But you never know. I mean,
Tua was the best quarterback in the class before the injury. And before Joe Burrow surfaced up and became Michael Jordan of college football. So, no.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll have to obviously see when draft day comes what they actually decide to do. But I think if Tua's there, I'm sure they'll get him. But we don't know. Somebody could jump in front of him. Obviously, Detroit is open to trading their third overall draft pick, so we don't know. But, yeah, so with all 4 of those teams, you have 3 teams, basically, it feels like they're on the rise. And New England, if Brady does leave, we don't know how far that's going to drop them. And then also their next biggest situation is they don't have a quarterback. I mean, do you really trust Jared Stidham to get you to 11 to 12 games and winning? I mean, listen, New England's going to be good and constructed well where they'll still be able to probably win without Brady. But like in terms of like they want to have championship success. I don't think you're going to believe Jared Stidham's going to get you there unless you really think your defense is about to lock everybody down.
Hey,
and get you.
Maybe this is the Teddy Bridgewater trade, or not trade, but pick up.
I mean, potentially they might trade.
There's like a lot of quarterbacks on the market, so maybe they don't need to go get a young guy.
Could they potentially trade up for Tua?
Why would they? I don't think they do that. I feel like, they would be the perfect market to go get Eason or who's the kid out of Georgia?
Jake Fromm.
Yeah, they both came out of Georgia. That's funny, but. I could definitely see Jake.
Eason came out of Washington.
Because I think a lot of people, say Jake Fromm is one of the smarter kids in the draft at the quarterback position, and he kind of just didn't get to showcase as much talent as you'd like to see out of a quarterback at a Power 5 school like Georgia. But Georgia has been notorious for not slinging the football up and down the field since the A.J. Green days. So since that day, A.J. Green went to the draft.
Joe Cox days.
Yeah, we have not seen a prolific Georgia passing game and has been running back university ever since.
With Aaron Murray, you could kind of say a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Most underrated number 1 receiver in the country at that time, Malcolm Mitchell. But,
Yeah, and we saw his stint in the NFL.
Yeah, I went to New England. That failed.
I mean,
a lot of young receivers don't do well in New England's receiver system because it's so complex. That's why they may have guys who have talent, but it never works because the system is so rigid on young players. So that's why I think they're kind of like this young receiver thing ain't working. But that's why you've even seen players that have been in the league go to their system and not work because it really just depends how it works out. To be honest with you,
exactly.
They're one of the few systems that you just be like, oh, you can plug someone in here and they'll be successful. Because you're gonna have to learn a lot and it's very complex and that can sometimes limit how you play.
Right. So who is the surprise out of this division? I mean, sure, if you're a betting man, you're picking the Patriots. But if you weren't able to pick the Patriots, are you picking? I mean, it feels like you either have to pick Buffalo or New York Jets. But the thing about Buffalo is I feel like Buffalo, unless they get figured out, which they haven't been in the past few years when they do get to the playoffs, we just kind of know what they are. And it's up to them for their execution because they lost them. That I wholeheartedly believe that they lost that game. Houston did not win that game, nor did I feel like Houston deserved to win that game. I feel like the lack of offensive consistency from Buffalo cost them that football game. And Josh Allen is not a finished product, but he is also not I don't know if he's the franchise guy just yet, even though I do enjoy watching him play. I like Buffalo. They're my AFC team to watch and root for. But I just feel like there's a lot more upside with someone like Sam Darnold than there is with Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. And if they can re-sign Robbie Anderson or find somebody else to replace him, they can figure the offensive line problems out, maybe get Le'Veon back to his form and, stop beefing with the head coach. It might be a better look, And they already have, in mock drafts, they have the Jets taking Okudah, the cornerback out of Clemson or out of Ohio State, who was the best in the country, and pair him with Jamal Adams. That's a pretty stellar, two sides of the secondary.
Yeah. I mean, you would think it would be one of those two teams if they're going to dethrone them. Obviously, I'm sure Josh Allen will try to work on accuracy. I'm sure the Jets will try to just work on their overall team. I mean, we don't even know if Le'Veon's going to be here. They might trade him still because, they may feel like there's no point because, like, again, Gase said, I don't believe in paying him what we paid him. And they probably feel like if we can get rid of Le'Veon, we can take that money and then give it somewhere else and improve other positions on our team. And then they can maybe draft the running back and then just be like, okay, there you go. But we don't know. I mean, there was like a report last week that said that the Jets felt like Le'Veon got overweight. And that's why he lacked his explosiveness and his playmaking. So if they're thinking that he kind of hurt himself last year, then what does that mean when they look at him in terms of just keeping him into this next coming season?
We'll only know with time, as we're out of time today. So thank you all for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. Don't forget to rate and review us. Thank you for listening. You can find us on all different podcast forms. So, I'm Apple Music or Apple Podcasts rather, Stitcher, Spotify, all the like. Don't forget to follow us on our social media. So that's our Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter. Any final words, Brice?
Just have a good day, guys. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Drink more water, and don't fall for cake turkeys. Signing out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.